What's your first name?
Nick.
What is this young man's name?
Matthew Magruder.
And your first name?
A $40,000 Rolex Daytona spins through the air in slow motion, catching the fluorescent courtroom lights as it tumbles end over end toward the bench of America's most feared television judge. The gasps from the gallery hit like a shockwave. Security lunges forward, arms outstretched, but they are too late. The watch strikes the wooden bench with a crack that sounds like a gunshot, bounces once, and skids to a stop at Judge Judy Shinlin's feet. The courtroom is frozen. The cameras are rolling. And the 24-year-old son of a United States senator has just committed the single most destructive act of his privileged life. Not because of the watch, not because of the disrespect, but because of what Judge Judy had been waiting to reveal the moment he gave her a reason. But to understand how a $40,000 watch destroyed a 3-term senator's political career, ended a family dynasty, and became the most viral courtroom moment in television history, we need to go back to the beginning. We need to go back to the night a single mother had her wrist broken by a boy who had never once been told no. Tyler Whitfield was 24 years old and had never worked a single day in his life. Not one shift, not one paycheck, not one morning alarm set for someone else's benefit. He was the only son of Senator Richard Whitfield, a 3-term United States senator who had represented his state for nearly 18 years and was currently cruising toward re-election with a double-digit lead in every major poll. The Whitfield name was political royalty in their state, attached to highways, hospital wings, and university scholarships, funded not out of generosity, but out of strategy. Every dollar the family spent in public was designed to buy goodwill that could be converted into votes. Tyler was the product of that machine. He drove a matte black Porsche Cayenne that had been purchased through a trust fund connected to his father's network of donors and business associates. He wore custom-tailored suits from a shop in Manhattan that knew his measurements by heart because he had been a client since he was 16. He carried a black American Express Centurion card with no spending limit and used it the way most people use a library card, casually and without thought. Except Tyler had never set foot inside a library. His Instagram account, followed by 47,000 people who mistook proximity to power for actual achievement, was a curated gallery of bottle service at exclusive clubs, courtside seats at NBA games, and vacation photos from places most Americans would never visit. But behind the polished image was a pattern of behavior so ugly that his father's entire political operation existed in part to keep it hidden. Tyler had been expelled from 2 private universities. The first expulsion came after he destroyed a dormitory common room during a party, causing $11,000 in damage and sending a resident advisor to the hospital with a concussion. The incident was quietly settled when Senator Whitfield's office made a generous donation to the university's capital campaign. The second expulsion came 18 months later at a different institution, after Tyler cornered a young woman at a fraternity event and refused to let her leave a room until other partygoers intervened. The university conducted an internal investigation, but before it could reach a conclusion, Tyler withdrew voluntarily, and the matter was closed after another round of discreet financial negotiations. His encounters with law enforcement told the same story. A DUI at 21 that was pleaded down to a traffic infraction after his father's attorney made 3 phone calls. A destruction of property charge at a nightclub where Tyler had thrown a bottle at a bartender who cut him off, resulting in 7 stitches for a 22-year-old college student named Marcus Williams, settled for $25,000 in cash and a non-disclosure agreement. An assault accusation from a 58-year-old valet driver named Roberto Fuentes, whose glasses Tyler broke and whose ribs Tyler bruised because the man took too long returning his car, settled for $15,000 and another non-disclosure agreement. Every incident followed the same choreography. Tyler would hurt someone, his father's lawyers would arrive within hours, money would change hands, documents would be signed, and Tyler would walk away, believing what he had always believed, that consequences were things that happened to other people.
People who didn't have his last name. People who didn't have his father's phone number. People like Elena Vasquez. Elena Vasquez was 34 years old, a single mother of 2 children, and one of the hardest working people you would ever meet if you bothered to notice the people serving your food at parties you could afford to attend. She had grown up in public housing on the south side of a city that rarely made the news for anything good. Her mother, Rosa, had raised Elena and her 2 siblings alone after Elena's father left when she was 4 years old. Rosa worked as a hotel housekeeper for 23 years, often pulling double shifts so her children could have school supplies and winter coats that fit. She taught Elena that dignity wasn't something you were given, it was something you built with your own hands, one honest day at a time.
Elena carried that lesson through everything. She put herself through community college while raising her first daughter alone, studying between shifts and sleeping 4 hours a night for 2 straight years. She earned her associate's degree and immediately took a second job to start saving for her children's education fund, a savings account at the local credit union that she added to every single paycheck, without exception, even if it meant eating rice and beans for the last 3 days of the month. She worked as a catering server for a high-end event company that staffed the most expensive fundraisers, galas, and private dinners in the region. The pay was $15 an hour, plus whatever tips the wealthy guests decided to leave, which was usually nothing. Elena was invisible to the people she served. She carried their champagne, cleared their plates, and smiled politely while they talked about tax shelters and vacation homes, as if the people feeding them didn't exist. She had never complained. She had never been inside a courtroom. She had never asked for anything she hadn't earned. She was everything Tyler Whitfield had never had to be. The night that changed both of their lives was supposed to be a routine catering shift. Senator Whitfield's re-election campaign was hosting a $5,000 per plate fundraiser at an exclusive country club, the kind of event where powerful people gathered to write checks and congratulate each other on their importance. Elena was one of 12 servers working a 10-hour shift. She arrived early, pressed her uniform, and tucked a photograph of her 2 children into her apron pocket, the way she always did for luck. Her phone, a 3-year-old model with a cracked screen that she couldn't afford to replace, was in her back pocket. That phone contained the only voicemails she had saved from her mother, Rosa, who had passed away from breast cancer 2 years earlier. Those voicemails, 3 of them, were Elena's most precious possessions on Earth, more valuable than anything she owned, more irreplaceable than anything money could buy. She didn't know that by the end of the night, they would be gone forever. She didn't know that the drunk young man in the custom suit, who kept snapping his fingers at the servers and calling them the help, was about to shatter her wrist, destroy her phone, cost her the job she depended on, and try to buy her silence for $500. And she certainly didn't know that her refusal to stay quiet, her decision to fight back instead of signing a non-disclosure agreement, would eventually put her in a courtroom across from America's most feared judge, with evidence powerful enough to bring down a United States senator. What Elena also did not know, what nobody outside of Judge Judy's production team knew, was that her case was about to become something far bigger than a dispute over a broken wrist and a destroyed phone. Judge Judy's research team had been quietly investigating the Whitfield family for weeks before Elena's claim ever crossed their desk. They had received tips from former campaign staff. They had obtained police reports that were supposed to be sealed. They had tracked down Marcus Williams and Roberto Fuentes, Tyler's previous victims who had been paid to disappear, and recorded their statements. They had pulled financial records that traced the settlement payments not to the Whitfield family's personal accounts, but through a shell consulting firm called Briartar Associates that had received $340,000 from Senator Whitfield's re-election campaign fund over 3 years. Judge Judy didn't just have a case about one woman's injuries. She had a file thick enough to end a political dynasty. And she was waiting. Tyler Whitfield walked into Judge Judy's courtroom on a Tuesday morning, wearing a navy blue suit that cost more than Elena's monthly rent, Italian leather shoes that had never touched a sidewalk, and the Rolex Daytona his father had given him for his 21st birthday, a $40,000 watch strapped to the wrist of a man who had never earned a single dollar in his life. He didn't look at Elena as he passed her. He didn't acknowledge the gallery. He didn't even look at Judge Judy. He sat down, pulled out his phone, and began texting with the casual boredom of someone waiting for a table at a restaurant. His attorney, a high-powered corporate lawyer named Richard Crane, who normally handled mergers and acquisitions, leaned over and whispered something about putting the phone away. Tyler ignored him. Then, loud enough for every microphone in the courtroom to capture with crystal clarity, Tyler glanced up at the bench and said to his lawyer with a sigh that dripped with contempt, "How long is this going to take? I have a dinner reservation at 8.